everyone. Welcome to today's edition of #Malkin Live. I've got a super fun guest today, so we're just going to get started. I'm going to bring him right in here. It is Scott Greer.
Whoa.
Hey, Scott.
It's me. Hey, I'm glad to be here, Michelle.
And we coordinated color, we coordinated bookcases.
Yeah, I actually arranged this bookshelf just to be like Michelle's, to be honest. I don't want to reveal too many secrets, but yes, I did.
We're matchy-matchy. For those who don't know Scott Greer, and shame on you if you don't, he is the host of the highly respected podcast, and I linked that on an introductory tweet, and I'll also put it here on the YouTube version of our live chat as well. And it's growing like gangbusters, right?
Oh, it's huge. It's going to be the biggest podcast in the universe.
That's right. Huge.
It's growing by little steps. It's getting a little bit more attention. It's doing well.
Absolutely. And we're going to make it go by leaps and bounds after today, right?
Absolutely.
You're also the author of No Campus for White Men, and of course, an award-winning journalist.
That is 100% true. That I am an award-winning journalist. I didn't necessarily get to keep the award, but I did win it. So and that's the point. I mean, they don't say, even though O.J. Simpson had to give away his Heisman, he's still a Heisman-winning running back. So, I'm in the same way. I'm just like O.J. There's some people I'm worse, but whatever.
Yeah, right. That is true. So we've got about a half an hour, and I want to go through 10 topics. So I'm basically going to just lay it out on a platter for you and let you roll. And the first one, obviously today, dominating all of the news and the headlines, is the arrest of DAlene Maxwell. By the way, did you know that that's how it's pronounced? I had to look it up. DAlene.
Yeah, I had no idea. I didn't know the S was silent. I've been saying DAlene Maxwell. I have no earthly idea. I'm just like a dumb country bumpkin when it comes to stuff.
So what do you make of it all?
Well, I mean, they clearly had to arrest her. I mean, this whole thing is just so strange. I mean, even the fact that mainstream journalists are joking that she's going to commit suicide or whatever, that does show that there's something very strange going on. Why did it take them over a year to arrest her? Why has she been in these safe houses in foreign countries such as Israel? What is her intelligence connections? There's been so many weird things about this case. And I mean, it's good that they arrested her. I mean, people have been expecting it. People have been wondering, why has she been out? Even last year, over the last summer, she had those weird pictures she leaked to, I think, TMZ or Hollywood Reporter that turned out to not be her recent photos. They were from a few years ago, and there was Photoshop used. So there's just such strange things going on. But I think this is a good sign. I mean, that the federal government Maxwell and Epstein were clearly guilty of many crimes, and it's good that they're finally going after them.
Yes, but what is that famous slogan? Question the timing. I question the timing, right? And you're right. That thing was so strange with those staged photos. It's there is, this high flying, heiress at a In-N-Out Burger in California.
Just where you go. That's just where you go when you're on the run. You go to an In-N-Out Burger. It's wow, I need to get away from the feds. Hold on, I need this milkshake first.
Yeah. And so
they don't serve cheese pizza there. I hear.
No, they don't. The fries are really good though. I don't know if we've done a fry comparison, but I put the In-N-Out fries, up near the top.
Yeah.
In any case, so of course, what's so annoying is the almost studied and deliberate trivialization of all of it. And, predictably, of course, I mean, everyone thought they were the first person to put DAlene Maxwell didn't kill herself.
Oh, it's so funny. Yeah, it's an original edgy joke. Oh, yeah. Wow, Jeffrey Epstein didn't kill himself.
Right.
Well, so edgy. I'm worried about your career now.
Yeah. But seriously, I mean, it just is a sign of our unseriousness as a country that we're not talking about her father and her father's intelligence connections and what she might possibly be in terms of an agent. And so that's my question to you, and I don't know if you have an answer to it. Whose purpose does it serve at this particular time to have this entire circus of the arrest and these enforcement measures against her now?
I'm not even quite sure. I mean, the fact that she wasn't arrested speaks greater volumes than that she's being arrested now.
True.
And even when Jeffrey Epstein, I guess, killed himself or whatever, when people were actually saying who really killed him, it was very indicative of political discourse in our country. The mainstream right was saying it was Hillary Clinton. The mainstream left was saying it was Donald Trump. The far left was saying mass incarceration killed himself. And then boomers were like saying that it was, I think Iran or Qatar was killing him.
Qatar,
I mean, Qatar does so much. I mean, they got us into so many wars. Qataris need to stop with all their influence over our country.
They're the real Q, right?
Yeah, they're the real Q of Q, the Q, Qatari Anon. Yeah, no, and they were all saying this, and it's like, well, what intelligence service was he most likely to work for?
Yeah.
And especially with Maxwell. I mean, her father worked with Israeli intelligence, and they're like, yeah, he worked for the Qataris or Iran or Russia. Depending on where your political beliefs are, you are inclined to blame this all on some evil foreign actor that aligns with your own political interests. So, yeah, I don't know necessarily why they're arresting her now. The fact that they let her be for several months is very weird, and I think we need more answers about that. I don't know why they've decided to arrest her now. I guess there's just so many events happening that they need to all happen at once. So they're just like, oh, well, we've got riots.
Let's toss this on the fire, right?
We got China and India possibly going to war. We've got all these other foreign conflicts. We got an election. Might as well just arrest Maxwell as well.
Right.
Just throw it all in one together.
Speaking of conflagrations, Monument Madness reaching a fever pitch this weekend. Trump is supposed to go to Mount Rushmore, you know, that monument to white supremacy. New York Times going after them. And then we had the arrest of this, I didn't realize this, CPAC credentialed Antifa dude, Jason Charter, for going after the Andrew Jackson statue in Lafayette Square. Where does this all end?
I think with them sandblasting Mount Rushmore, I think that's where this ends. I mean, they're already making this a mainstream thing. I wrote actually 3 years ago in an article that they're like going to come after Mount Rushmore. It was like a kind of cheesy, like cheeky article about how like it's time to blow up Mount Rushmore. It was like saying like, well, all the people on there would be counted as white supremacists and racists, all four of them. And then two of them were slave owners. And even Lincoln is now considered a racist. I mean, they were vandalizing his statues. And they're taking down a statue in Boston. Yeah. So nobody is safe from this. As long as you're a dead white male, they're going to come after you. I mean, there was even this abolitionist in Wisconsin, Hans Christian Haig, I think is the name. Yep. He was taken down, and he was he died fighting the Confederacy, and then they just took him down. And they didn't really have a reason for like taking him down. They're just like, well, it's a dead white man. We want to tear them down, because that's all this is about, is that anybody who symbolizes that America was once a country that the founders and everybody else happen to be white, they want to tear that down. They want to have this diverse, multicultural America that has all these figures. They want to have, a black trans statue to replace that dead abolitionist, and to replace Lincoln. They have to have peak diversity in all these statues and monuments. So anything that shows that like this country used to be predominantly white and most of its leaders were white, and that they may have had beliefs that would be considered politically incorrect today, you have to tear them down. They're not fit for honoring. We have to only honor people who perfectly align with 2020 liberalism, and anyone else has to be destroyed. So now they're even going after Woodrow Wilson. There is no limit to, they may even go after FDR. I think some conservatives may like that. It's not like the worst person to go after, but there is no end in sight to this.
So who's going to replace the Fab Four on Mount Rushmore? Here's mine: Sean King, Benjamin Crump, Trayvon, and George Floyd.
Well, I would agree with George Floyd, but they'll do Obama. Definitely Floyd and Obama. Martin Luther King, and they'd have to find a woman for that. And there's not necessarily like they have like, I mean, I guess Harriet Tubman, or maybe Sojourner Truth or somebody. And then that'll be the new, I mean, George Floyd, Obama, and Martin Luther King are definite. The fourth, they may, have to decide. But I mean, we joke about this, but we were joking about, and Team America, which was released in 2004, it's a joke that Michael Moore blows up Mount Rushmore. And now it's like a serious political idea as discussed in the New York Times and the Democratic Party. So what we today joke about, they may make a serious idea, 20 years from now, or really like 5 years from now. Yeah.
So then that makes us just, the most astute prognosticators. Even though it's the most
That's very true.
Thing. Yeah.
We gotta have, I don't think we're going to have a ton of statues to George Floyd. I could see even a national holiday someday dedicated to George Floyd.
Speaking of which, just perfect segue to number 3, the Juneteenth Republicans, Ron Johnson, James Langford et al. On the one hand, and then you've got, let's just talk about them first.
Oh yeah, they're now trying to, with Langford and Johnson, the whole Senate is wanting to pass a bill that's going to make Juneteenth a federal holiday. But for them to like, oh no, our budget can't afford another federal holiday. How about we replace Columbus Day so we could save taxpayers money? And there's no concept of like the meaning of replacing Columbus Day with Juneteenth, which was it's not a real national holiday. This is a minor holiday in Texas that was primarily only celebrated by Black Texans, and it was just like a day to go to the beach. It was not that serious of a holiday. And hardly any Americans outside of Texas and nearby states in like Louisiana and Arkansas had even heard of this holiday. And now it's like the most important holiday in our country, and we need to honor it. And it's even more important than July 4th. It's our real founding is Juneteenth. And the meaning of Juneteenth is, yes, we should celebrate the end of slavery. I mean, I don't know anybody who's wanting to defend slavery or bring it back. But that's not the meaning. It's not the meaning of that America did this great thing by ending slavery. It's to shame and demonize America for having slavery in the first place. It's a whole holiday designed to instill white guilt and animosity towards whites and to America itself. That's the whole purpose of it. And all these stupid conservatives want to be like, oh, it's a celebration of our freedom and our great constitutional principles. We finally lived out our freedom. And no, they don't. That's not the meaning. They've already moved past that. I mean, they don't even want to acknowledge that the Union freed the slaves. The slaves somehow freed themselves. Like they just, one day stepped off the plantation. Like there's a war going on, but we just freed ourselves. We didn't need the Union. We didn't need 300,000 Union soldiers to die for us. We could have just freed ourselves. That's the new line. I mean, New York Times columnist Jamel Bowie has written this. The number one historian in America about race, Ibram X. Kendi, who I'm wondering how he got his PhD in the first place, because a lot of his ideas seem really loopy. But all of them believe that the slaves freed themselves, that the Union played no role in this. And so there's all these things that have been happening with the...
I hear a doggy.
The dog just interrupted, so sorry about that. But there's all these things that have been occurring, and with Juneteenth is not going to be a holiday that is actually going to be for all Americans to celebrate, or for all of us to want to honor and to rally around as a country. Columbus Day is much more important to our founding than Juneteenth. It is actually a holiday where we celebrate what eventually led to the creation of our country. I mean, if Columbus had not sailed the ocean blue in 1492, we wouldn't have America. And they all want to demonize him as this like great genocidal maniac who did these terrible things to the natives and everything like that. And yes, I mean, we don't need to necessarily defend everything that he did, but then they forget that like how cruel and savage the natives themselves were. I mean, he was fighting Carib tribes, which were cannibals, but they don't want to talk about that. No. And so they don't want to talk about that. So Columbus has always been a hero to us, and it became a national holiday in order to honor Italian American heritage, but it's something that all Americans can honor and value, because without him, we wouldn't have the country we have today.
Absolutely. So this virus among these Senate Republicans, it's it's been with us. It's been a live virus for a while now. But there seems to be a silver lining in that the kinds of critiques that those of us on the dissident right have been leveling at the establishment Republicans for years and years and years to limited success now really seems to be just breaking open in public. And there's like this accelerationism that's actually beneficial. Do you agree?
Yeah, no, there isn't a type of accelerationism going on, but I'm not sure if it's really beneficial to our cause, because there is like people are almost accepting it, that what is happening around. I mean, people are just kind of like shrugging their shoulders at everything that's happening around us, that they see the statues toppling and I guess they get more black-pilled and they just like, well, I don't really like that, but I don't know really what to do. And when you have this type of extremism, like, and I think a lot of people, especially in the Trump, in the previous years of the Trump era, like they were seeing like, oh, the left is getting so radical that this is going to make everyone vote for Trump and become, hardcore right wingers. And then and there's like always this like moderate conservative meme done by people who didn't vote for Trump. And they'll like anything that would happen, there'll be like, if a celebrity was criticized, they'd be like, this is how you got Trump. Or it's like, somebody criticized like John McCain. They're like, this is how you got Trump. It's like, that's not how you got
That's
Trump.
not how you got Trump.
That's not how you got Trump. And like, we're now seeing like Trump's poll numbers like decline. I mean, the RCP polling average right now is about 10 points, or 10-point advantage for Biden. And Trump is not doing so well when it comes to polling. And people are all saying that the riots would be a gift to Trump. They're clearly not, because it's showing him incapable of doing anything about this. Like, I mean, he's now doing stuff. I mean, there's now stiff federal penalties being imposed on people who attack the Andrew Jackson monument. He is pushing other lawmakers and officials to go after these, Antifa and Black Lives Matter activists who are attacking the statues. And he is going to Mount Rushmore to signal that we're going to defend the monuments. But there's still this degree that we're seeing too much chaos going on in the country and that we need to stop this, that like somebody needs to stop it. And they believe that, well, I guess Biden may stop it by just calming everyone down, that they get what they want, that the left-wing agitators get what they want, they get Trump gone, and maybe we can sort of return to normal. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I try not to be too black-pilled, and you do see these sort of spurts of armed citizen activity now, defend our monuments rallies here and there, not a single one of them ever attended by any elected Republican official or establishment conservative or member of YAF or TPUSA or any of the multi-million-dollar funded groups. But it does seem, across the heartland at least, some people have had enough. And we didn't see those sort of outward manifestations for a long while. So I don't know. I kind of try to grasp a white pill where little tablet.
There are. I think when you see people in Philadelphia, you saw the working class Italians.
Yes.
Yeah, well, even in Fishtown, and they were standing up to the rioters, and then you saw all these Italians who were defending like the Columbus statue in Philadelphia, and there was other cases, I think in Boise. Yeah. Or I think in Idaho, where it's like the locals like outnumbered the Black Lives Matter protests and surrounded them.
Right,
and they basically, the Black Lives Matter for the first time had to require police protection from these locals. And the locals weren't really, we're definitely not as much, nowhere near as violent or as threatening as the average Black Lives Matter protests in this country. They were just standing up that like, you're not going to do Seattle here. We're not going to tolerate it here. And they sent their message loud and clear, with no real, there was a few scuffles, I think, there, but nothing like that major. And, we don't, of course, not supporting violence or anything like that, but they did send their message to these protesters that you can't do what you've been doing in Seattle and San Francisco and New York and DC and Minnesota. You're not going to be able to do that here.
Yeah. Yeah. So there are pockets of resistance, shall we say, small ones anyway. Okay. Next topic. The Kushner Axios piece. I don't know if you read it yesterday, but the thing is, it's such a freaking roller coaster, right? Oh, let's get all excited about this. There's some self-awareness that these people are bad people, right? Right?
Yeah.
And And my comment on this yesterday was the shift in Con Inc. sentiment. Because in April, when they trotted out Jared Kushner as Mr. Genius handling the pandemic, and I, dared to even
he's just so smart. I can't believe everything he could solve. He could bring about Mideast peace.
Yes.
He may cure cancer eventually. Yes. Like, he's just so smart.
Right.
I mean, just go to Jared for everything.
Yes, that's right. And so back in April, the bulk of the replies to my tweet on that were what I call norm splaining. Right? All the normies telling me why I should just be quiet and not be divisive. And after all, look, he's such a bright young man. And he's brought in all of these McKinsey friends of his that are so smart. Now, of course, there's this huge pivot, and it's all dawned on them. This, maybe he should take a back seat. So what's going to be the upshot of all of this after a couple of days of buzz about this Axios piece? I
think there is a case that Trump is getting tired of hearing Kushner. I mean, he's of course not going to fire Kushner unless Ivanka divorces Jared, which would probably solve a lot of issues. I mean, even though Ivanka is a lot to blame for pushing these same liberal policies, I mean, we don't necessarily blame Ivanka as much, but I mean, it's not necessarily good optics to be complaining to Trump about his own daughter. I mean, Trump's not going to fire his daughter or turn on his favorite child. So, barring a divorce, Kushner is going to have a degree of influence over Trump, but I think he is getting tired of his advice about how he needs to be moderate, how he needs to push criminal justice reform, about the real response to the riots is targeting police racism and all the terrible things police do. I mean, there's a real epidemic of unarmed blacks who are getting killed. I mean, 9 died last year. I mean, we had several thousand murders, but apparently these 9 deaths matter more than anyone else. I mean, the funny thing about Black Lives Matter is they say that we don't think Black Lives Matter, yet we're having nationwide rioting and all these changes in our society over 9 or 10 unarmed black deaths, and most of them were justified. I think if you watch the Tucker Carlson clip, I think only one officer was found guilty for these offenses. Most of them were using their car as a weapon or using a baseball bat or something like that in order to target a police officer. So, but with Kushner, he thinks that's the way to go, is to appease the mob and to do all these left-wing policies that will make him respectable to the New York elite that he feels comfortable in. Because, I mean, Ivanka and Jared do not want to be ostracized after this Trump administration. They want to go back to business. They want to be invited to the fancy cocktail parties in Manhattan and be seen. And they don't want people to go up to them and say, you're a racist, you're a bigot, you helped this Nazi in office. They want to be well, I did so much for criminal justice reform. We let out thousands of drug dealers. Please, look how good people we are. And none of this is working. And then in that piece, the sources say that Trump realizes that criminal justice reform is failing. It's not winning over the minority voters that Kushner promised. It's not a winner among his base. His base is feeling depressed. They feel like Trump is not winning his interests. I mean, there was a New York Times poll last week that shows that he's losing his working class white support in battleground states. He won that demographic by 26 points in the battleground states in 2016. That support is now at 16%, and a lot of these are 16-point advantage to Biden. And a lot of those people are complaining that Trump is not doing enough about the riots. And they are also upset about the lockdown effects. And they're saying why is Trump not doing more in that regard? But if he keeps listening to Kushner, he's going to keep losing these voters, and he's not going to gain any new voters. And hopefully Trump is realizing this. And I think he is based on the messaging that he is espousing. And he's also, that article mentions that he's paying very close attention to Tucker. He's realizing that Tucker is having record-breaking cable news ratings. There's never been cable news ratings as high as Tucker's right now. And Tucker is just going on straight fire. Every night there's every night there's a powerful monologue where he excoriates Republican stupidity. He calls out the Democrats, calls out Black Lives Matter, says things that no other conservative or Republican will say, and he's getting nearly 5 million viewers a night. And Trump is paying attention to that, and he's realizing that that's the message that's connecting with his base, that has the potential to help him in November not Jared Kushner's agenda.
Exactly. And just a couple of side notes on that. His ratings in the demo, right, the treasured 25 to 54 demo, are just through the roof, record for Fox News. And that, of course, is the coveted demographic for advertising. And so you have this weird, cognitive dissonance. I mean, he's bringing in the most coveted advertising demographic while all of the woke companies are bailing. They'll come back.
He's got My Pillow. That's all I need.
Yeah, but they'll come back.
Keep buying My Pillow to help talkers.
My Pillow and what is it? Some gold line thing. Anyway, but the point is they do come back. They wait for the fire to die down, and that's what happened. The last couple of years when the color of change type people have gone after Tucker, and he has prevailed. The other point I would make about that too is he's become more emboldened. He has started naming the names and going after Kushner, specifically going after Tim Cook in a way that he hadn't before. And yes, I will give credit, absolute credit, to all of the grassroots in the America First movement who've been doing the legwork on this for years and years. And that includes you, Scott, for sure.
I know. It's a heavy burden I bear.
Yeah, that's right.
My tweets are carrying the entire country on my shoulders. When I tweet,
right.
when I wake up every morning, I'm like, it's a burden, this immense power I have in tweeting. But I carry on just for the people.
And that's why you too have to do your face pulls and lats and do deadlift and do squats. I'm going to get your whole regimen here, the America First workout regimen.
Yeah, we need that more. I mean, I had Jaden on my podcast yesterday. I was talking to you this before. Yeah. This segment unfortunately got cut out, but a lot of people were telling me that I should ask Jaden's like, why doesn't he work out? And poor Jaden McNeil, if your listeners aren't aware, Jaden McNeil is now America's most dangerous college student. The entire Kansas State football team wants to boycott until he's expelled just for making a joke about George Floyd's sobriety. And I was telling him, like, you're this big threatening guy, apparently, according to all these athletes, but why aren't you working out? And he's like, oh man, coronavirus, I'm too busy working out my video game skills. I could beat anyone in 1v1, like challenge me in Valorant. He's like, we nobody doubts his video game skills, but maybe just do some push-ups every now and then, man.
You got to work out more than these muscles. You know what? We've got to start a lifestyle channel with Steve Franson, Jaden, Nick, you and me, and I work out very vigorously as well, right? And I mean, we got to practice what we preach, right? We got to be ready. So. That's
right. Yeah, we'll have some coordinated, martial arts training and stuff. We'll try to find some people who are good in that. Maybe I know a few people, but yeah, it is funny that. One thing with Jaden, I think we're going to talk about this in a moment, is that all these like gigantic football players who can like squat like 4 times his weight, and then they're like, I feel threatened by poor old Jaden. And if you look at pictures of Jaden, he's got his glasses on. He's just like a normal kid, like a little goofy. He's a gamer. And they're all feel threatened by it. It's just this giant, like, defensive end who's just like, I'm scared of poor Jaden. It's like, so maybe Jaden doesn't need a workout, that his tweets are so threatening that he just can tweet at people and they'll run away in terror.
Yeah, that's right. They're shaking. So I said I was going to get to 10. I think I made it like halfway through the list, but it is a good one to end on. It's the subject of your latest podcast at Highly Respected on your YouTube channel. Like I said, I'll link it. And you talked with Jaden for about an hour about everything that's been going on with him. I also wrote my column about it, my syndicated newspaper column about it this week. And to me, what's extraordinary, of course, not surprising, is the complete absence of any elected Republican officials, conservative leaders in Kansas, the red state. And I titled my column, and I know you'll get it, but of course, a lot of younger people don't understand the reference when you say, what's the matter with Kansas? It was a famous book by Thomas Frank, liberal author and journalist, and interestingly enough, of course, highlighting the the cleavages between the big business right and grassroots and blue collar conservatives and Republicans. He borrowed that phrase, "What's the matter with Kansas?" from an editorial that had been done in the 19th century, again, between the split of populist conservatives and more elitist establishment conservatives. And so Kansas State is headed by a president, General Richard Myers, who I think served under, was he a Bush military general? I think he was. And you've got all of these officials in this reddest of red states genuflecting to the BLM mob and these elitist, privileged Black athletes.
And it's very disappointing, but it's part of the course for this to happen is that whenever universities, in my book that I write about this, is that it's not really the universities that are the problem. It's not the administrators and these professors and for many years, conservatives always blamed that these kids got brainwashed by the professors. Like, no, they're going in and a lot of them already have these ideas and a lot of them are more radical than the professors and the administrators. And the professors and administrators are just trying their hardest to kowtow to them and to appease them, to say, like, please don't eat me, please don't revolt against me, please don't get me fired. And this president has no earthly idea what to do. I mean, like, college sports is so big for these universities that they're just like, oh no, our big football team that I think they had a mediocre season last year. I'm not sure if they even made a bowl game. They've been good in years past though, but they're not like Kansas State football is not terrible. But they're so worried about this because they get all these alumni and boosters who keep contributing to the school on the basis that they'll get to see their team play every Saturday. And now that team is threatening to not play unless this terrifying student is expelled, then they have to go to DEFCON 5. They're like, oh no, we got to do something. We've got to get rid of him. But they're legally they're challenged to really figure out a way. I mean, he didn't commit a crime. It wasn't a threat. It wasn't a threat to commit a crime. It was literally just a joke.
Yeah. And it wasn't racist either. I mean, that's
it wasn't racist. Yeah. It wasn't anything that should be like, I mean, yeah, people are going to get offended by it, but that's like, oh, I can't believe a college student would make an offensive joke. I don't want to live in this country anymore. And it is disappointing. It's like that the president is likely may lean Republican. I mean, he's a general, and a lot of conservatives always think of these generals as like these upstanding conservatives who will never bow down to the mob. But if you've seen that all the generals were supporting Black Lives Matter, and the general even apologized for standing next to Trump as he was going across Lafayette Park after dispersing the rioters. He's like, I shouldn't have done that. That was against my code of honor. And they'll all say this, that they'll all want to bow before the mob so that the controversy will end. And they will not stand up for their own people. They won't stand up for conservatives. And they'll even like complain about cancel culture. Like there's several conservatives right now who are complaining about this Asian Harvard grad who lost her job at Deloitte after she threatened to stab people who said all lives matter. Now that's actually a violent threat. Unlike Jaden didn't make any threats. He didn't make any, he wasn't saying he was going to stab people who disagree with him. He was just making a joke. But this is a woman who was like, I will stab you if you say all lives matter, and I'll laugh about it. And, this is a huge controversy, and there's been so many people who've lost their jobs for much less. I mean, there'll be people who lost their jobs for saying something that they support immigration restriction, or they may have had like an alternative Twitter account and they said like some politically incorrect things. They'll lose their job. And all Antifa and these Antifa journalists do is try to find these people and make them lose their jobs. Conservatives have never said anything about that. They have not said, and many of them have not said anything about Jaden P. McNeil, our good friend, but they are all in tears like, I can't believe this cancel culture against this affluent Harvard grad who lost her Deloitte job. I mean, this woman will go find another job that's equally well paying. Her life's not ruined. People will forgive her. I mean, if we lived and if we played by their rules, like she would have a tough time finding employment. A lot of people who get exposed or doxxed by Antifa, they have to face like real world intimidation and harassment. And this woman just has a few mean jokes on Twitter about her and people laughing about her losing her job. But this is the real cancel culture. Yet they won't say anything about Jaden.
Yeah. Well, that's who they are. They're the champions against the cancel culture mob, tweeting that we need to stand up now. right?
Yeah, and I think the way they use cancel culture is that the only people who have ever been victims of cancel culture is like Dave Chappelle, who faced criticism for his show, but it wasn't canceled, and like any other celebrity who doesn't get, like Kevin Williamson losing his writing gig at the Atlantic, who's this horrific conservative writer who loves to hate on, who once wished that working class white communities died.
Yes.
Him losing his job at the Atlantic and him going back to National Review. This is real cancel culture, but like some ordinary citizen who had politically incorrect beliefs and them having their livelihood ruined, them being like driven out of their hometown and having like mass physical harassment campaigns conducted by Antifa. That's not cancel culture, and we're just going to sleep on that. That's not important to talk about. We got to defend Dave Chappelle, because if we don't defend him, he's going to be really hurt. Like, he may get more 1-star reviews for his latest comedy bit.
Yeah, right. I said I was going to get to 10. Like I said, I know I didn't get to them all. So that means we're going to have you back.
I guess so.
Yeah.
We'll see. I'll have to check with my manager. We'll see if we can set it up.
I know, we can schedule it, right? Sounds great. Go work out.
All right. Thank you.
Thanks, Scott.
Bye-bye.
Bye.